basically, you can see, no point repeating what I've got up there, you can all read. Basically, I'm going to go through just an agenda. Basically, I've been doing this for 20 years and started a long time. So basically, I'm going to describe my little side project that I'm working on at the moment. Part of why I joined here, so I'm actually out of the house and actually be focused and not being disturbed with the dog, the wife, and all the other crap that happens around home. And then a little bit about my history, how I got to where I am, the knowledge I have. And then I'm going to talk about some of those experiences I've had, like dealing with Silicon Valley, dealing with teams, outsourcing, and all the pains and love of building startups in a world where nobody else has done it before. And you get told you're mad. So basically it says I'm a serial founder, I'm a software engineer, I'm actually also a third turner by trade. My qualification is production industrial engineering from, it's now called the Auckland University of Technology. Back before it was like equivalent to a TAFE, it was like a 5-year course I did in 3 years. It's part night school, and you had to do 8,000 hours of practical. And that's production industrial, so you had to learn how to take stuff from concept to market. Like one of my teachers was the guy that built the Gillette factory for doing razor blades. Another one was a teacher, he was a maths thing, he also raced rally cars. So experiences and all that. And what I'm going to talk first is about my new project. Funny thing is, this project is based on, I did 25 years ago. It's just now you can do it a lot easier. Back then I had clients like Southern Bank in New Zealand who used my software, with my accounting software back then. But it's based on a very simple idea, is spreadsheets are an island. Spreadsheets you normally import data into, you modify data, they don't talk to the world. And you gotta remember, spreadsheets have been around since the early 80s. The first one was on the Apple II called VisiCalc. And you normally modifying data inside the spreadsheet, you export out of your accounting software or other systems, bring them and manipulate it. So that was the premise of their problem. And what I've done is I've actually linked my functions to the data. So basically you just do it as a function, so you can move it around and do what you want, how you want type situation. So there's none of this export, import, it's a true real-time communication. And that's what I've worked on. And I'll describe the first step of this whole journey that I've started. But the idea when you start something like this, you say, I have a big idea, it's a big problem. And then one of the things you say, well, I know how to fix it. Then the other question you ask is, how big is the market? And there's a lot of people that use spreadsheets. There's a lot of spreadsheets out there. And there's a lot of activity on it. So there's pretty much a big market to it, technically. That's what the VCs like to see. There's technically a big market. In reality, when you're starting, it's a lot smaller. So first stage is accounting software. And that's what I've done before. Linking to your accounting software. Now, just picking the 4 major players in the market, Xero, QuickBooks, there's about 7 to 8 million businesses that use those products. And give the growth rate of Xero 1 year ago was 1 million businesses. They're now 1.4 million businesses. So it's 1.4 million businesses are now on Xero, where last year it was only 1 million. So they're growing at a 40% growth rate per annum. And you've got a few there, you've got MYOB, which has been around forever, trying to go cloud. They're about 600,000, but they've got about 1.2 million customers. So they're working flat out. And QuickBooks is a couple of million and growing fast, type of thing. And to manipulate your accounting data is painful. You've got to log into your accounting software, you've got to work with it and all that type thing. So what I did, whenever you do this, you do a proof of concept first, how to link to it. So you really focus down on one market. So I picked Google Sheets, which is 100% cloud-based. Uses JavaScript, it's got all the functionality, and I linked to Xero accounting. The addressable market, when you get down to it, is actually only 1,400 companies I can actually sell this to in the proof of concept. Because Because you take down market size, only 10% of the market use Google Sheets. Early adopters, know what, you're not going to get everybody up there. So you end up with a nice small number, which I've got to find. I went out and talked to a number of people. I've been this before and tested and built it. And basically, for an accountant, you just go equal, GL balance, the account code, and the month. There's the figure. And so you can move that across the spreadsheet however you want, structure it. Multiple columns, you just open it up, there's the data. So I can share the spreadsheet with anybody in my business. They just have to open up the spreadsheet, and there's the data. They don't have to log into my accounting software. They can't see my accounting data, they're not allowed to see, because I can log the sheet into read-only mode. There's no more excuses. Oh, I don't know what my budget is. I don't know whether I'm on target to KPIs. But also, with this data, you can actually then integrate with other information, like when I did 25 years, one of my clients was TV3 in New Zealand. They did a weekly TV. They do Shortland Street, which is my neighbours here. They had a spreadsheet that was linked to my accounting software back then. They opened up every week and even took into account the amount of hours of daylight per day they could film and what the weather was to calculate the profitability. So they could do proper profitability analysis in the spreadsheet, which you can't do in an accounting software package, because that's not what accounting software is about. And with that, they could forecast the profitability of each episode. They weren't, so you can see how fine control, because TV is a 70-year-old industry. It works on margins of that thin. And they have a lot of data. So they were able to do detailed analysis, how the shows work, and where to trim costs or manage costs or do things, type thing. And I've already got one of my customers using this. He's actually linked his Google Sheets to 5 companies in one sheet. They're just pulling data from 5 different companies, consolidating it and analysing it for a customer. He used to spend 2 days every month doing the same task. And he's an accountant. He says the most boring batshit work I have to do. But now I just open the spreadsheet. Now I can spend time with my client actually helping them on their business, which is really what he's really in the business for. So that was my proof of concept. I'm now currently doing the Excel version. The reason I'm able to do finally Excel is Microsoft have actually come into the modern world with Excel. The latest update of Excel allows you to write all the macros in JavaScript now. It's still what's called insider mode and beta mode part of it. So there's no documentation, things crash, which is typical software development as you write it. You can see the market size changes quite dramatically, how many customers I can have, and how much money I can earn, potentially out of that. It's a nice little business type thing. So I'll give you where I am and what I'm up to now. Like, I started this, would you believe, only March this year, this project. I'm only part-time on it. It's not full-time. I actually do a little bit of other consulting work and I'm taking time off type thing. But you can see, but basically I went through, interviewed customers first, tested the idea, proved it, followed a pretty logical process and be willing to change as I'm going through, keeping it very controlled and managed. And it's just me doing this. I've done Facebook ads, Google's ads to see how many people show interest to come in, to give me a size of market. How can I access my market? One of the things I learned is 90% of small businesses have a Facebook page now, business page. So you can advertise through them to that and capture those people. And one of the things with Facebook ads, you can actually specify early technology adopters as one of the search parameters for your adverts. So it allowed me to pull in people, and that's one of the things when you build a startup is distribution. How do you get it? But I have accountants that are interested. And one of the things I'm already approved with Xero, I just got to get a certain number of customers, and then you go on the marketplace and you get their market, so you're then leveraging off a partnership with them, and then you'll do the same with QuickBooks and all the others as well. So basically, once I link to all 4 of those type thing, and this is only stage 1 of this whole project, basically you can see 70 million, 90% of those running Excel, early adopter. The potentially total market size 630,000 businesses. So it's $15 million revenue per month. Revenue per month on 10%. This is top-down modelling, as they call them, which VCs like, which technically says if you go 15 million monthly recurring revenue, you're worth about $1 billion valuation. It's quite a simple formula. Normally you take between 5 and 7 times your annualised recurring revenue to calculate out your valuation.
So Peter, just to clarify, is this the Australian market only?
No, global.
Global, yeah.
Anything you're doing like this, you must be global. Australia's just too small a market. And I come from New Zealand, which is even smaller, so you always think global from day one. Biggest problem with Australia, Australia's big enough to actually do your business and survive. So you really need to think about the whole activity. Type thing. So you've got to think about that whole activity. And that's one of the traps that people have developed here in Australia. You think Australia's big enough. And you can actually make a living quite nicely out of Australian business. But to go global, you have to start thinking global from day one, but act locally first. And I'll talk about some of the stories I've been through to get to this. So basically, what I do is talk a bit about myself and what I've done and everything else that's gone on with that. That was my first programming job, programming a CNC lathe, machining, and I did that in 1977. I was 17. My dad bought the 4th machine into New Zealand, and he was a jobbing shop. We had like 6 or 7 staff, and he made a decision. If he wanted to grow the business bigger, he had the choice of going to 20 staff type thing because of the overheads. You needed more people to cover the overheads of people, managing people and stuff like that, or spend a lot of money and buy one of these. 2 years later, he bought a second one. I was programming that every day. Just left high school, had to go to uni. A year that year, I was only 17. And you program, would you believe, on paper tape. That thick, 8 dots per line. Program it, make a mistake, redo it. And if you make an error on those things, you miss a 0. You're going from 300 mils to 30 mils with 20 kilowatts of power behind it. You make a mistake, it's dangerous. People have nearly been killed. I heard a story like in the Navy, they got one, they made a mistake. It lifted this turret back here, one of those, broke 24 high tensile bolts, lifted it through the top of the warehouse and dropped it down beside the guy. About half a tonne or so of solid metal. I've had where one of my engineers was basically, he made a mistake of 1 millimetre on stuff. We span a piece of aluminium. It was that square spinning 2200 RPM out of the chuck. It turned the turret. But the Japanese company sent down the replacements within 3 days. This is in the late 70s. So that was my first experience of real programming. And it's a language called G-code, which is still used today for programming these machines. My dad just bought a machine 2 years ago with all the CAD/CAM stuff on it, and it's still G-code underneath it. So the language for programming these hasn't changed. So I learned the core language. And that was some of the stuff we've machined. My dad makes these now. The swivels here. So on those, you'll see those. Those two then turn. All milk tanks in New Zealand must have our swivels. So that's my first commercial product that we worked on. And that's still in production, those type of things today. My dad has a nice little engineering business, and he's in his early 80s, just starting to retire type thing. And he has his own story about what he's been through, which has sort of given me, it's great to be able to refer to your dad and say, well, he went through these pains of building a business type thing, because I grew up in this whole environment. My first commercial software was on the Apple II, would you believe? Writing software to get all the calculations for machining. So that was in the early 80s. My wife and I wrote on that.
Did that have a hard drive, or was it just two
floppy drives? hard drives weren't existed there. My very first one actually used a cassette tape for storing your stuff when I played with it originally. So my parents bought that for me, and then Olivetti asked me to write in CAD/CAM software to run the Apple lease in '83. And the Apple lease is pre-Macintosh. That's the graphical interface that the Macintosh had. So I was writing on that in '83. Sitting in my house with a $40,000 computer, because they were expensive back then. And that's actually, yeah, it's pretty close to what I had. Then I actually created my first business, which is an accounting software company. As you see, we've got the Apple catalogue here in Australia, articles and all that, and built that business. It is still in business today, still operating. I think they have 20 or 30 customers still. My ex-partner in the business, he has a nice place down in Bondi Beach, nice place in Threadneedle, a few nice other things. Has made a nice income out of it. But today, when you look at the software, it's still the same code I wrote back in the late 90s. Even the UI is still the same type thing. So, but it's a pay the bills business type thing. It's not a fast growth business, which we all take for granted. So there's types of business, and I'll show you what the difference means. For a few years, I worked for other people. One of my teams won a World IT Congress Award for video conferencing. I built a few other things. I worked for Leap Legal Documents. Now, Leap Legal, Chris Beck, who's the founder, I took over from him of writing the main product. He was last, he's number 99 of the BRW, he's worth about 800 million now, which is nice, Chris. He's done very well. And he has his own story as well. He presented at Sunrise a couple of years ago, which is a conference about founders and all that, and that's at Cockatoo Island next month, which is another good learning thing to go to. So I built a few things, learnt lots, wireless ISP stuff, a few other bits and pieces I can't talk about I've built, and all the rest. It's one of the things you run an R&D division for a corporate for a little while and work on other things. And then I left that and started a new business called iPowow. I thought I was going to have a break, and I got pulled into this. Read this prospectus, and I found one line of this prospectus was actually the real idea of the product. It's a big idea. It grew and grew. Originally it was for the political market, until we learned politicians actually don't want to hear from the constituencies. They want to tell you what they think. We then pivoted to TV type thing, and that's where it got to 100 million valuation. It's a story in itself.
So what is it exactly, Peter?
It's basically a real-time TV engagement. So here's one of the events we did in Dallas, the Raporr fight. As they were finding people on their phone, were saying who was winning the fight in real time, and we're putting it up on the TV screen in real time as you're active. Now you would have seen this here. It's been on TV for the last 6 years. It's part of the cricket, so I'll just play the video. I'll just turn the sound on. Just push the sound up.
Just also the same as, I can remember maybe a decade ago there was a thing called The Worm on TV.
Yeah, I did. We did The Worm.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
We did The Worm on Channel 7
Yeah.
a couple of elections ago. They won't do it anymore.
Yeah.
We had 25,000 people in real time engaged in that.
Yeah.
iPowow did that recently for the elections in the US. They had to guarantee 1 million votes a second on that. And we've done a couple of events in 2011 on AWS where we did 65,000 votes a second. But I'll play a little video. Yep.
The Nine Network Summer of Cricket set the participation TV benchmark. Beginning as the Vodafone viewers' verdict, the now CommBank viewers' verdict has achieved 12% viewer participation with a peak of 23%.
Let's get the CommBank viewers' verdict on this. Third reckon it was out, 2/3 not out.
Badging is getting a big response, 44%. It's moving because it's live. Kuala Lumpur, 21. Get him on the step ladder. He is just not resonating with our audience at this stage. The inclusion of iPowow into the official Cricket Live Australia app drove over 700,000 downloads and engaged over 2 million visits during the Ashes series.
So you can see, it's been used by ESPN, Fox Sports, NBC and a lot of other companies around the world. But we got basically, the company got to 100 million at that point. In the space of 3 months, it dropped to there, of 2 million valuation. Because in the market, a lot of second screens had died because the VCs decided the market wasn't as big as they thought it was. So they said, oh, we're not going to put any more money in it. And when you don't have any more money and you're raising money, things change. You are not on that growth curve anymore, you now got to survive. And that's one of the things when VCs are investing in you, they want you to run as hard as possible to the cliff, promising you might have the money next round. It's not a guarantee. So it's one of the learnings I'll talk about. So it got reborn, it's now a business, it makes good money, doing all right. I have no interest or involvement in it anymore, no shares, no nothing, because it went through full bankruptcy in the US, because we flipped it to the States, well, to Canada, and basically the VCs over there wrote off $18 million just like that and took it off their books. And they want it off their books because it's not going to make the money. It's sitting on their books, decreasing the value of their funds, and they can't claim the tax losses. So the clients that iPowow has, you can see it's quite a name, a lot of name brands, and they're actually moving into blockchain now for advertising type things. So there's some interesting things the guys are playing with, but we'll see how it goes. But it's only a small number of its clients that they've built. So just because you move to sustainable business, it doesn't mean that you don't have a good business. And it's one of the things I'll talk about. You remember, staff don't care about your valuation. They've got to pay the mortgage, they've got to feed the kids, and everything else. That's what they care about. That's the balance of being a founder. You've got a balance between that growth and people living. Last one I did was Raporr. We raised about 3 million. It's in the messaging space, and it was focused on the business messaging. That thing everybody now talks about is called Slack. We were just entering the space when Slack suddenly appeared. But we took a different direction. We were for the people who don't sit in front of computers. So we're not for people in front of computers. And that's what we built. Very simple product. Actually took the best of email and messaging and combined them together type thing. But it failed. That's the whole problem with startups, is we couldn't raise our next round of money. And that was more not with the product. We had one of the big corporates, banks, who wanted to have them be able to talk to the merchants, and the merchant staff was backing us. They changed direction. And then we couldn't raise any more money. And also I had an ex-co-founder, which is another story in its own right. Basically then, basis is we liquidated the company, and that's basically when it was like, I've had enough. I moved here. Stress out, take time off, and recover. And now I'm building my own product now, as I see it, it only needs me. I know the engineering, I know legal, I know accounting, I know marketing, I know all that. But that's part of the other reason to join a co-working space. Is I get to be with other people, network, be able to do things like this. And because to build software companies, it's all about people. It's not about the idea, it's about people and execution. The idea is just a seed, but a seed doesn't grow unless you water it properly. So my learnings is, the first thing being an entrepreneur. So the first thing is basically, you've got to be a guru of what you do, at the idea, whatever part you do, you've got to be the absolute expert. Really, really good. But then you've got to be a handyman, which means you've got to know all the other stuff of running your business. All the other things that goes on, and you've got to be able to deal with it, type thing. So you've got to know the market, the business, and everything else. You can't be just an expert on one thing. That's an important thing. The other thing is, when you talk to VCs, you can't be humble, especially in the US. But when you work with your team, you have to be humble. You hire smarter people than you are. Let them do their job. Your job as a founder is to empty the rubbish, keep everything out of their way, and allow them to get on with their job. So you deal with all the crap that goes on, so they don't have to deal with it, because they're not distracted. And that's the art of being a founder. One of the things is hire carefully. That's an experience I hired 2 really good people who turned into prima donnas. They thought they were more important than the business. Nowadays, if somebody does that, they're fired. They're gone. Nobody's more important. It's the vision, is your vision. You know it better, you live and breathe it, you're the expert. And trust, and because you're an expert in it, trust your gut. Too often things, and that's part of one of the things we talk about all the thing is the mental discipline that you've got to have to be a founder. Now, if you have co-founders, it's a marriage. It's forever type thing. So don't go into business with somebody you just met at the latest hackathon. Go out, get to know each other, get to know their friends, get to know your friends, ask your friends what they think about them, because your friends will see them better than you do. You'll be in a bubble with them. Make sure you have a proper vesting agreement over time. So many people go, oh no, we don't, it's going to be great. No, it's not. Shit's going to happen. Life's going to change for them. They might get sick, can't work for 6 months. What do? Or they might not be able to stay working for you at all, but they own part of the company. Or you might find that somebody you have to kick them out because of something they've done in the past. And we've had that. And basically at that point, when you kick somebody out and they still 100% the company, nobody wants to invest. Because they go, well, I'm putting the money in, that guy's getting all the increasing value, but he's getting no value to the business. So investors then look at it pretty badly at you. Lawyers, they're your biggest asset, but they're lawyers. Their job is to help you manage your risks, make you aware of risks, and that's their job. They're the risk mitigator for you. They'll tell you what can go wrong. They're not there to tell you what goes right. So you've got to trust that, and you've got to sometimes override them. They bill you like wounded cats. Don't let the bill get too big, because it becomes a bull type thing. Quite often, the lawyer ends up being your biggest creditor type thing. And that means when you go to raise money, they go, oh yeah, we might turn that into equity. Or they go, well, we want our money as the first cut of our investors' money. And investors go, we're not paying your lawyer type thing. So it creates issues. Investors. Okay, if you're going to raise money from somebody else, deliver. That's all I can say. You promise, you deliver. You're spending your Scottish grandmother's money. Have you ever dealt with Scottish grandmothers? They want to know, what did you spend that 1 cent on? They want to know everything. If you turn up a nice new car, it's one of the stories I heard out of China, and there's this nice Rolls turned up, picked up the investor. The investor goes, whose car is this? Oh, it's my car. He goes, no, it's not. It's my car. What do you mean? Well, I put the money in. Where did the money come from? Guess what? That founder was no longer with the business 3 months later. So remember, you're spending their money. And if it's an angel investor, you're spending their post-tax money, which is even more valuable to them. And that's another story in its own right type thing. And they want you to go hard because they want you to reach this. There's only a 3.2% chance of reaching that type thing.
Where'd you get the 3.2 from?
That's basically, if you see the formula here, if you get seed investment, 60% of you are going to fail. 40% are going to succeed. You raise the next round of money. Type thing. This is actually from a proper VC thing I got through my LinkedIn contacts. Proper chart. And you look, when you do all the probabilities, and you get to the end of it, you can see what it is. So they say basically 79.8% of startups fail. And you hear that story, 1 in 10 fail. The thing is it's all about perception of what failure is. Okay? 70% become what I call businesses that make paying the bills. They're looking after people. Staff getting paid, you're getting paid. It's just the people invested are not getting their money back. And that has a big impact. So that's what they're chasing for as the exit. So they're going to make you go hard. Now if you're a VC, if you only got 3% of your investors going to do that, and you've got to give it, and you're a bank, because that's what a VC is, they're a bank. They borrow money from a whole lot of other people, says we'll give you return in 10 years' time. Better than what you can by putting it in the markets. And we'll put it on this risky stuff. And that's why they've got to be brutal. That's why you hear the story, oh, we want one that will turn us 100 times our investment. Because they've only got a 3% probability of actually having one of the investments. So you think about the numbers and the time that they've got. One VC out from Singapore, he says he interviews 700 startups a year and only invests in 5. And you've got to think about 700 startups. He says 2 weeks of every month is seeing his current portfolio. The other 2 weeks of the month is those startups. And only 1 week of that is interviewing. So you think he's got basically 40 weeks a year interviewing 700 startups. Type thing. Because you've got to remember he's also the ones he thinks go past the first interview now going to have DD on them, due diligence and all that. So it's a mathematical game. It's about deal flow. It's why they're so interested in accelerators and incubators and co-working space, because you act as a concentrator of that type thing, because they need to find the deal flow. For you have to be very self-aware what you're doing. That's a roller coaster, and I mean a roller coaster. Mark Schuster, who's a VC out of LA, writes some really good blogs and talks about the roller coaster of being a VC. And of a founder. And the biggest problem is you're doing something other people aren't doing. And you're actually building the roller coaster as you're going. Type thing. And you got highs and lows. Like I was lucky a few years ago, we had a group of Milan University students that come out through the university, our company, and they asking about it, and I says it's fun. It's scary, it's fun. And I said, well, they asked, what do you know? I said, well, with iPowow I've been to 3 UFC fights and been on backstage. I did the American Music Awards where Black Eyed Peas was mostly sitting over there. Saw Pink practicing, saw Taylor Swift, was sitting there, my co-founders filming it. And the reversal, the security guard walks in and says, what are you doing? Camera, erase that. Didn't tell me I actually already had it in another memory chip as well from the night before. Did the Parker thing, boxing. We did the Miss USA in Vegas. I was sitting in the container doing the stuff for that. Everyone goes, oh, that was great. And I go, no, it's not. It's hard work. And then the team went and we did Miss Universe in Brazil, which is where we did 65,000 votes thing. So as a startup founder, you get to do things normal people don't get to do, which is the fun of it. But it is a scary role. And the biggest problem that's so scary, you need to have mental discipline. You need to take time out. You need to look after yourself. And you need to talk to people. And you need to have a network outside what you do. Like, I've been a surf lifesaver. I'm involved with a swimming club. You deal with people who have no idea what you do. They don't care. They care about you as a person and talk to you. Because being a founder is highly stressful. And the article, Amanda Price from KPG just published an article on that. I was part of a cohort with them a couple of years ago with LOA 61. And they've said basically being a founder is 70% of them are overstressed. And I think that's an understatement. You've got to look after all your staff, you've got all your VCs, conflicting interests, you've got to raise money, sometimes you can't make payroll. Like I was at a talk the other day, we was talking about, they were stressing about payroll, couldn't make it. I had staff where they weren't paid for 5 weeks, type thing, but nobody left, which actually is really good because the VCs go, well, they believe in you, they'll stay on. And it's a common story like that was done last night that Brendan Yell from Head with Startup Grind. One of the things, he's Ola, which got bought by Telstra, he had 3 days worth of money in the bank, type thing, before they raised their money. So, and you've got to remember, Google went nearly bankrupt twice. It's part of the experience. You've got to deal with it. And the other thing is, you've got to be proud of what you do. And not be afraid. You're breaking new ground, you're breaking the rules. Now, times people say you're mad. No, not just because you're from here and nobody else has done it before, doesn't mean that you can't do it. When we did the cricket with Channel 9, we've been talking for a year, they didn't believe us. We actually went and did our deals in the States with UFC, did Clark Productions with American Production and all that. And then Miss USA and Miss Universe before Channel 9 signed the line to prove ourselves to the corporate market here that we actually could do it. So we went offshore to prove ourselves, came back here, did the first deals here. And then that opened up the door. We did a deal with ESPN Sports Centre. We were on air with them in under 5 months. Now, if you deal with Disney, everybody says it takes 18 months. When you're dealing with the corporates, if you get a champion in there who's got power, an executive producer on a TV show has absolute power. How you like a job where you wake up in the morning, you look at the ratings, and if the ratings are not good, you could be fired today. That's how brutal TV is. They did one TV show, they did 3 episodes. End of 3 episodes, they canned the show. Thank you, done, finished, paid everybody's bills, finished. Only 3 episodes in. And you're seeing that with some of the TV shows you see here. Type thing. And that's the whole thing, you're doing stuff with people. You've got no rules, no benchmarks. You've got competitors. If you tell a VC you don't have competitors, they'll laugh at you. I was at a presentation, I'm part of an entrepreneurial group called Tide, which is a global, came out of Silicon Valley entrepreneur group, and they organised, we had one of the marketing officers of Procter & Gamble, Unilever, one of them, and he's talking, he says, they're an $80 billion turnover company per annum, and they are required to grow 5% per year. So he says, I have to find another $4 billion worth of revenue next year. He says, I can't go and steal it from my competitors, Unilever and all that, because I'll just steal it back the year after. So what we need to do is find new product, new market, and even when we go into the new market, we make sure we bring our competitors so they can pay part of the marketing costs. Because we go and do it ourselves, they'll come in next year and still be able half of the market because you can never have 100% market share. So go and prep. And the other thing is, your competitors have already done a lot of market research for you. Read it, dig through it. And also it's great when you're talking to VCs, so, well, our competitor, he's doing that, he's doing really well. He's just raised 25 million. Okay, well, if the VC's done the due diligence and marketing for that amount, okay, how much do you need? And that's one of the other things people get cracked into, is thinking, I don't want a competitor. And that's very much the Australian small market mentality. You've got to remember in America, there is 18 competitors, but the market's so big, at times you'll work with those competitors to actually close a deal because you're slightly different type thing. And you've got to remember, you've got to cover it. And when you go global, it's even harder. That's why Atlassian, they have partnerships. Their partners help them do business around the world. They don't have a sales team, as per se, but they have partners. That's their sales team type thing. And their team is looking after those partners full time. So, because one of my staff, she was head of global operation, I think, at Atlassian, and she was ex-Apple as well, which is my last business, and learned a lot from her as well. So, things. But so it gives you a feel for you're doing things that other people haven't done, but there's so much to learn. But as I say, fundamentally, the fundamentals of business are still the same. You still got to do your accountings, still got to do the legals, still got to deal with VCs, still got to deal with people who want to rip you off, type thing. And everything, you'll get multiple people say, oh, I think you should do it this way. You get massive conflict in advice, type thing. But you're the founder who live and breathe your product and your business. Take all those in, throw it all up, mix it up, and pick out what you think is right. Just because they think it's right doesn't mean it's right for your business. You know what you're dealing with. And it's so important. Questions?
You mentioned at the start that you go about hiring people smarter than you.
Oh, yeah.
How do you go about finding that sort of talent?
Networking, talking to people. It's one of the things you've got to be, you can't be an introvert.
Do you develop a skill at profiling people when you
No.
come into contact? No?
Be yourself. The whole thing is...
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant by talking to someone and getting to know them, like drinking, like you suggested, then you become confident in their talent.
Well, I actually, when I interview, like when I do formal interviewing, basically I run a 3-stage process. I was lucky when I went in the corporate world, I wrote some software for HR recruitment company. So when you write software for companies like that, you learn the processes and the systems. And one of the things I got taught is, and you'll see a lot of things, the interview I break into 3 pieces.
Yeah.
And I tell them up front, the interview is the first piece is, I want to know about you. And you'll see some people go, yeah, okay, you don't believe in yourself. Next part is, I want to know about what you've done in your history, work history. Because I've got your resume, and I've got your skills and all that. And the last part, if you get to the next stage, is you've got to meet the team. And the first stage says, tell me about you, but there's 3 things I'm looking for. Ethics, integrity, and get stuff done. So I've got to be able to trust you and trust that you're going to get stuff done. And there's certain words people use. I was lucky, like my co-founder with iPowow, he'd been an actor, child actor, he'd been a business coach, and he taught me, you listen to the words they say, and every time people talk to you, there's 3 or 4 words they could use. So it's listening to which word are they using tells you how they think. And he tries to pressure people so they don't think about the words they're going to use. There's things I'll ask, like, have you written on your resume SDLC? They go, what's SDLC stand for? I know what it stands for, Software Development Lifecycle. Tell me about, what does SDLC stand for? And if they go hesitate, you go, well, do you know your stuff? You wrote it, or did you write it? And then you delve into it. But the thing I'm looking for is, are you a team player? Like, have you played in team sport? Or you've been a coach? There's 2 things that tell you. If you're in a team playing sport, you know how to turn up on time. Because if you don't turn up on time for your team, the team can't play. And business is about team sport. If you've been a coach, you've learned how to look after people, how to get people the best out of them. Have you won awards? One of the things, I did a paper at Stanford online, and one of the things I researched was what companies have been successful internationally versus the American. And most international companies have been successful because of awards, that won awards. And that's the other thing I talk to people is, well, have you won awards for something? Have you done something? And they might talk about they won something 20 years ago. It doesn't matter. It tells you something about them. Because that's what you want to learn. You're just trying to learn about people. And that's one of the things I'm going to, as part of my professional development over the next year, is actually learning that skill better. Is how to understand people better, because that's my weakness. I trust people too much, which has burnt me, but allows me to get the best out of people, which is why we've won awards. So that's the thing. Fine. And the thing is, if you make a mistake, the sooner you get let them go, the better for you and the better for them. If it's within the first week, it's good because they're still on the recruiting thing. Oh, we did a trial with them, or they don't even have to talk about you. They can move on. But if it's 3 months, if you do the 3 months probation, And you'll find that if you made a gut decision that first week, at the end of 3 months, you're still going to get rid of them. I learnt that at one of the companies I worked at. I had a guy hired, thought he was good, he'd done his stuff at Victoria University when brother-in-law taught, type thing, okay, you've done that, certain skills, certain things, coloured it. Within the first week, you're crap. What you told me and what you're delivering is two different inconsistency. And then my boss, he says, no, you can't be that brutal. So I kept him for the next 2.5 months, and after 3 months he says, no thanks, and he came and says, well, Pete, you're right. That's what I mean, trust your gut. And it takes time. And you're going to make mistakes. If you make a mistake, correct it quickly, and that's about the lean agile model, is if something's not right, make a change quickly. But, and I always qualify that, especially when you're developing product, like I'm taking my time building now. It takes time to build good product. You don't want to make it go quick. It's like baking a cake. Do it slowly, do it properly. You make scones. You just knead it to the right level, you then cook it for the right time. You can't hurry it up. You hurry it up, it turns out a piece of rock type thing. Building product is like that. Do it right, take time. If it's not right, if the dough's not right, you throw it out and do it again type thing. And when you're in the early stage of a startup, time is not your enemy. When you have product market fit, time is your enemy. That's why you then go get the VC money to give you an unfair advantage. Because that's what VC money is there for. They give you an unfair advantage against your competitors to grow fast. Other questions?
Tell us about Silicon Valley and your tribulations there.
Been there a few times over the years. But I think my last trip up there, I went part of KPMG Elevate 61. So it was a group of us who went up there. That was really interesting because instead of me going up there selling my stuff to them, we're going up there to learn. And it's amazing when you go up there and say, I want to learn. They tell you things that you don't normally get told. And I think the best advice I remember from that, Bill Reich, he's Guy Kawasaki's VC co-founder of Garage Ventures. And he's talking to him, he says, the biggest problem with Australians, and I'm a Kiwi, so I actually have the same problem, it's an English issue, is there's two issues you have. Your attitude towards pride. You're about being humble, prideful, because that's part of the English culture. America's about Tarzan, chair, big chest. That's why Americans do that. The second thing he said was freedom. You're about freedom is about being fair, win-win. Freedom to us is, I'm free to screw you. Type thing. And that's a very different mentality. Just because, type thing, because you remember the VC, the Silicon Valley and all, those VCs are interviewing 700 of you guys every year, analysing, it's their job to look at you, analyse and make a decision. And they do it in 2 seconds. That's their job. It's not your job. Your job is your product. Trying to present yourself. They also know when you're in the rough diamond stage, they can see through it. But the Valley is very much, it's about a network, talking to people. The Valley itself is, well, it's a different world. I would never live there. It's not a nice place to live. If you're inside Facebook or Google's campus, it's nice. Go outside it, no. I heard a talk a couple of months ago down at the Sydney Entrepreneurs place at the university.
Sydney School of Entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and one of their students actually done a internship with WhatsApp, and he's talking about that. And he says got that, and the process to get the internship with there was like to get inside those companies is extreme. He says I had 3 interviews, Skype interviews, and he says here's the code, write. He had to write during the interview, code type thing. One of them is writing code and his computer froze. That was it, interview over. done, finished, buy it, next. It's brutal. You're dealing, Silicon Valley is, everybody's going there, see the best of the best. It's hyper competitive. Like guys from Nitro talked about why they're in Austin, Texas instead of Silicon Valley, they're engineers. Because they hired one guy, paying really top dollar. He came in the day at the start and said, sorry, I'm going to work for you down this company, down there. And I go, what do you mean? Oh, I've just been paid a sign-on bonus. The sign-on bonus was like, type thing. But, you gotta remember, that's only the top 1%. What about the rest? It's expensive to live there, it's hard. It's an expensive place, Silicon Valley, San Francisco. Like staying in a hotel there's $500 a night. Everything's expensive. It's more expensive living there than living in Bondi, where I used to live, to rent. And you don't earn the same money. And your medical costs are like, I had staff in the States. What I paid monthly in their medical fee was equivalent to our yearly medical insurance here. Type thing. But I had to pay it because it's part of what they want. They'd rather take a pay cut and get medical insurance. Type thing. My development team in the States was in North Carolina, of all places. That's where Fox Sports is. So Silicon Valley is that the VCs, and there's different tiers of VCs. You've got to remember there's the VCs called the vultures, and there's real VCs. And those real VCs, they want you to be that big idea, because that's what they're after. They're after that 3%. They're actually after the 1%ers, the 0.1%ers, unicorns type thing. And the VCs here are good, like Airtree, Blackbird, and all that. They really are good VCs. They help. They organise events, everything else. And there's a lot of events to learn. There's a lot of good online material. Y Combinator has good stuff. Paul Graham has good stuff. Essays you can read. I run a boilerplate. Each staff member costs you $15,000 a month. Doesn't matter what, that's the total for the whole business. So if you've got 5 people at 75 grand a month burn rate, you're going to have. And it's going to take you 18 months to get it right. So you need $1 million. So that's the things you've got to remember. It's not an easy thing. It's just a lot of it. You can just go simple numbers, simple figures, simple ideas. Like you see my pitch. Spreadsheets are an island. Everybody gets that problem, especially people that use spreadsheets. You've got to bring it down into simple terms. Because you remember, you sell into a VC, you've got 2 minutes. Can you pitch your idea in 2 minutes?
I think I could give a show if I was prepared.
Yeah. Well, Bill Wright gave us a good pitch. It's 30 seconds. You're not selling your product, you're selling the emotion of your idea. You don't sell your product, you sell the emotion of the idea and what it means to somebody. Type thing like, to an accountant, means every time you open a spreadsheet, the data is right, it's current. You can trust your decisions. If you're an accountant or business owner, it means I open that data, and what I'm seeing there is current and real and valid. I can make valid decisions on that data now. Not what was done 2 days ago, which is out of date. That's an emotional connection. How powerful that is. It's like iPowow. Our simple thing is, you will be heard. It's a simple idea, you will be heard. You're voting in real time, it's anonymous. No fear, everything. Modern Family, we did that with Facebook, you've got prizes and all that. But you could be heard. That's an emotional connection. And that's what people buy your product on. It's not dollars and numbers. It's what is it going to do for somebody? And that's what a VC wants to hear. Why would somebody buy your product? Why would they buy into your vision? And we don't buy into visions or ideas on dollars and cents. Otherwise, we'd all be wearing the same black turtleneck, black jeans, black this, black that, because we don't have to wash it as often. Can't see the marks, can't rest, I spilled the coffee, things like that. That's the odd story. Like people used to moan about, like, obviously in a meeting, they think that I'm the guy in the back, listening to everybody, and everybody's a specialist. My strength is actually taking every little piece of you and putting it all together to create something that nobody's thought of. And they always turn to me and so they discuss it. What do you think, Pete? And he says, well, you've talked about this, that, this, and that. Let's put that all patterned together. And he says, oh, you've got the whiteboard. And go, yeah. What do you think? Because none of them could think of it. My strength is the ability to see patterns and put them together. And it's not just pieces of tech, it's people, ideas, thoughts, abstract, and actually jump the chasm in thinking and believe in yourself. Like, you can hear I'm passionate about things, I don't hold back. I'm loud. When I talk about things, when I get involved in things, I drive hard. Which is why I've moved to Stockton to help manage that type thing, because I am a person like that. I will push hard, I will drive hard. And that's something that's part of it. That's you as a founder. You've got to have that passion, because that passion then it shoots into your team and then lifts the team. So, and that's part of where you come back to that mental thing and having other people to help you, because that passion takes lots of energy and it drains you. You've got to have other people to help you. You can't take their energy and put it back into you. You've got to rebuild it yourself every time. So you've got to be self-perpetuating your energy levels. And that only comes from belief, trust, and the people around you. When somebody screws you over, it takes a lot out of you. And it's people. And it's like when I look at P&Ls for startups, and I look at them and say, okay, how many people you got? Okay, what's your people cost? And then I go out and says, and it has to be around 75 to 80%. 20% is the shit of running the business. The other 80% is actually paying those people. And if it's not right, like 60%, 40% this one, and I go, well, no, your business is wrong. When if they go 90%, 10%, I says, no, you're fudging the numbers. See what I mean? There's so many rules of business that are obvious, but because it's not your business to be a businessman, you miss those. I'm like this. I've done accounting software, I've done legal software, I've done this for a long time. I've had a lot of good mentors over the years, and I've mentored others. And when I'm mentoring, I actually learn more. It's a funny thing. As a mentor, you learn more because you're now talking to more people. And the whole thing. The only thing I get pestered with is people come and say, oh, you're a technical founder, aren't you? Can you be my technical co-founder? No.
We might have to wrap it up there.
Yeah,
so
I think it's 9 o'clock.
But thank you so much, Peter. That was fantastic.